Hello ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here, back with part 3 of my PlayStation 1 collection. Last little sack of games here. Starting off, I've got 3 on top, which again, these are the wifes. Spyro, Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, and Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon. Not that I would ever disown these games, because the Spyro games are amazing, but these started off as hers, and I actually need to do some repair work on it. You can see the case is just completely destroyed on that one. She's missing the manual on that one. But she loved Spyro. She still loves Spyro. I've definitely got a... I've gone out of my way to buy several of the other Spyro games for her, but this was her indoctrination to real good gaming. That was probably the best game she had before I got her into it. So. All fantastic titles. The first one probably being the best, and then it gets better graphically, but a little bit weirder as the series goes on. I mean, it's not anything weirder than Skylanders Giants now, so I mean, yeah. Next up, Star Ocean: The Second Story. And Cat is attacking my stacks of games. What are you doing? Anyway, Star Ocean: Second Story. Really, really good RPG. The Star Ocean franchise is fantastic. I love the Star Ocean franchise. Referring to a sea of stars, space travel, but yet it still has swords and magic. It's awesome. And it fits a lot of things into the story really well of why how and why this universe exists. Done by Enix back in the day. This was the only one actually released on the PlayStation. Second Story, which is the second game. They're both remade on the PSP, and we'll get to that later. Following that, Suikoden. Suikoden 2. Suikoden 1 and 2 are just fantastically huge RPGs, dealing with 108 stars of destiny. The Suikoden goes up to like 3, 4, 5, and beyond. But these two are where it started off. Suikoden 2 is generally accepted as the best in the franchise, and as such it is ridiculously expensive. This was my Christmas present from my wife last year. This is all I got for Christmas because of just how expensive it was. I believe I ended up buying it myself because the auction, she was buying it on eBay. The auction that she was following, she miscalculated the time, and she thought it would be finishing when she was a couple hours after she got home from work one evening. She was wrong. It was finishing up earlier than that, so she was at work and she called me, "Hey, I'm watching an auction on eBay. I need you to make sure I win it. It's your Christmas present. Merry Christmas." It was Suikoden 2. I was ecstatic. And then the second it came in, I was giddy like a schoolgirl. Because I never thought it'd be one that I would own because of just how prohibitively expensive it was for the longest time. And still is. Next up, Syndicate Wars. I loved this game on the PC. It's an interesting squad-based top-down tactical game where it's rival gangs beating up rival gangs for control over super tech or super science tech, like Ghost in the Shell type body augmentation, mini guns, nerve gas. You can there's even a hypnotic suggestion gas where you can use it on bystanders and use them as weapons because they will attack. It's an interesting game. I spent hours playing it on the PC, and I don't quite know how the PS1 version stacks up. I haven't gotten a chance to really dig into it yet. Because this was the last PS1 game I bought to flesh out my wish list and my desired PS1 collection. So I just got that. Next up, Tactics Ogre. Another tactical RPG by Atlas. This came before Final Fantasy Tactics, but most of the same design team worked on it. So if you play this in Final Fantasy Tactics, you see a lot of similarities. You see how the games evolved over time and changes made here and there. This is so much more in depth, though. Like You thought Final Fantasy Tactics was complex. This one is just out there. You have different terrain types. You have different elemental affinities. You have different body sections of what they're wearing, which all change their hit percentage. Like if you're fighting a left-handed person versus a right-handed person, that actually can change your hit percentage in some cases. It's freaking weird. I read so many guides about how this works, and I'm not entirely sure what all is true or not, because there's just so much information out there that getting some of the statistics on it seemed like it was, I don't know how these guys wrote the guides for it, because there's just so much going on in that game. And also connected to the Ogre Battle franchise. So, next up we've got Tales of Destiny. Tales of Destiny 2. This is another game that has a ridiculously complicated naming scheme. You've got, what, Tales of Destiny 2, Tales of Fantasia. They're all not the same game. Like, one of them was released... Tales of Destiny 1 is Tales of Destiny 1. Tales of Destiny 2 is actually Tales of Fantasia 2?
No, it's Tales of Eternia.
Tales of Eternia. So, I don't... What? Why can't we just name things what they're supposed to be named?
To make it worse, there was a Tales of Destiny 2, but it was on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
It was a completely different game.
Yeah. As Helix is here he's helping me keep track of this, because I can't keep track of that game. I thought the Final Fantasy numbering system this is worse, because these are completely different games with different names taken and added to them because of fuck all. We have no idea why.
Well, Tales of Eternia because of He-Man.
Oh yeah, that's right. Tales of Eternia. They had a lawsuit with He-Man and Mattel. All right, still fantastic games. The early predecessors of the Tales series. So like if you're familiar with Tales of Symphonia, that's where this is where it started. The battles are not 3D overhead like that, but they do have movement controls. It's very fun watching where the series came from. The games themselves are fantastic. So, but they are Tales games, so the stories are kind of out there, like watermelon on the head, kind of weird. So, I promise I'll get to that one of these. I will explain that one of these days. Next up, we have Thousand Arms. This was actually a gift from a friend of mine for Christmas. He had this game. He played it twice, and he knew I was collecting games, so this was his Christmas present to me. He basically just picked it up off his shelf and was like, you know, this is a re-gift, but I know you'll be happy with it. And I am, because it's a very interesting, complex RPG done by Atlas, so you know it's got some weird stuff going on it. But it also has weird 3D trading cards in it that I kind of want to show off. Like see? He moves his little sword up and down. I don't know why I find that so fascinating, but I do. But yeah, the main character carries a giant hammer and a sword. There's really nothing bad to say about that. So, next up, one that I got this game, Threads of Fate, after watching an LP of it. I watched Scottish Ducks. I watched most of Scottish Ducks LP of it. I didn't finish it because when I bought it, he hadn't finished it yet. Because I kind of wanted to play it myself to get the ending. But it's an interesting role-playing game where you play as one of two characters. One of them has a giant wrench sword-looking thing, and the other one has a whip. Like, I have no idea how to classify whatever that sword is that he's carrying, because it's basically a giant pizza cutter almost, except it doesn't spin. But yeah, I started watching it and I'm like, I gotta pick this game up, so I did. The battle system is kind of action or RPG oriented, so similar to things like the Tales games in Grandia, but it just seemed unique enough that I had to try it out. Next up, Vagrant Story. I talked about the Parasite Eve style battle system. Similar to this, you attack with a radius based off of what weapon you've got equipped. So you can actually equip crossbows and attack from across the battle map. But then you can also target specific spots. And then you can upgrade the weapons to do more damage to specific spots. So if you're that type of person who likes to play snipers in games, you can actually add damage to attacking the head. And if you take out an opponent's head, that could kill them. Some monsters can survive without a head. Well, I mean, we all kind of figured that. But a very, very dark game set in the Ivalice world. So this is actually, in some ways, connected to the Final Fantasy Tactics storylines. It is set in the same world of Ivalice. So, really interesting little Square RPG there. Very dark. Very, very dark. Speaking of kind of dark, Valkyrie Profile. Everyone in this game is dead. Because that's the point. It's very, very good game done on Norse mythology, and they get a lot of the mythology right. They stick to as much of the actual Norse myth as they can. So you go around collecting dead people to build up an army, preparing for Ragnarok. There's 3 different endings to it based off of how fast you go through the game and what characters you get and what your overall worth rating is. There's I forget what it's actually called, but there's how much good troops and people you send off to Valhalla to protect against Ragnarok. That will affect the ending you get. It's a huge game. I actually traded it in a long time ago, and I regretted that decision and had to rebuy it because I got stuck in a dungeon, and this is the fledgling days of the internet, so there wasn't really a guide I could find, and I didn't want to shell out the $30 for a strategy guide. So I got stuck. I traded it in. I regretted it because I got crap for it, and then I went back and had to rebuy it for like another $40. Next up, Vandal Hearts and Vandal Hearts 2. Tactical RPGs. Again, I'm a sucker for tactics RPGs. Vandal Hearts 1 is a little bit better than 2, in my opinion. But it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It's a tactical RPG. Doesn't really improve or change on that formula too much. Story is kind of generic fantasy world, kingdoms at war. The story for 2 is a little more in-depth and fleshed out because it actually revolves a little more around the characters than the overall world and as to why they're fighting. So this is actually a little bit closer related to like a Shining title in terms of story development and pacing, but so dark and not nearly as chipper as a Shining title. Next up, another Working Designs title, Vanguard Bandits. This is another tactical RPG because again, if you write tactical RPG, just label sucker on my head because I will buy it. This one involves giant robots though. What? You can't say no to giant robots, man. These are all giant robot. People are like that big compared to these things. So you get inside and you fight with giant robots. And this one you actually have, I think, 3 different story paths that you can follow based off of what allegiance you pick. I've not really gotten too far into the game because it is kind of complicated and it is very slow to start off. But I've heard once you get into the game, it gets a lot better. I was watching an LP of that as well from, I think, Wind Falcon. I don't remember. But I had to get this game. And I got this game from another game collecting friend of mine who also gave me the hardcover strategy guide for it. So, kudos to game collecting friends. And you know who you are. So, thank you for that. Thank you. Seriously, it was a great acquisition. Next up, another gift from Darkseith, Wildnine. This one's just weird. Like, you have an electric grapple beam that you can use to pick up bad guys and burn them to death and torture them. It's really weird. I've seen him play it a couple of times. I've never played it myself because it just looked really freaking weird. But again, it was one of the ones that he was getting rid of when he moved, so I jumped on it because why not? I figured he enjoyed it. I trust his taste in games. He and I have very similar taste in games. So, I mean, if I can't trust his opinion on it, who can I trust? Certainly not Kulix. I can't trust him at all. Anyway, next up, Wild Arms and Wild Arms 2. I've played a little bit of Wild Arms 1. I remember a friend of mine in high school picked this up and said that I needed to play this. It is a standard RPG turn-based where you've got your 3 people on one side versus bad guys on the other side, and you take turns back and forth. But this one you only get 3 characters, the 3 characters on the front. Jack, Rudy, and Cecilia. Jack is a swordsman, Rudy has a gun, and Cecilia is a magic user. So, I mean, any character, and the whole thing about the Wild Arms series is there's typically a gun called Arms, which is some sort of magic god gun, and this kid gets it. So, I mean, you can't say no to a god gun. Shoot people in the face. But it's actually a very unique system. You can rename all of your abilities, like all of your spells, when you learn them and create them as you go through. And the graphics are a little weird because the characters are big-headed polygon characters, so they're kind of chibi. Graphics changed considerably for Wild Arms 2, not directly connected in terms of characters, but this one, when I got this one, they even kept the original sticker from the top on the back of it to prove that it's legit. I never really played Wild Arms 2, but you'll see in the others that I needed this one to flesh out the rest of them. But it is a series that I want to sit down and play all of one day, because the first one was a very worthwhile breath of fresh air in standard turn-based role-playing games. So I really do need to give the rest of the series the time and attention it deserves, other than sitting there testing it, making sure it works, and playing it for about an hour. Next up, Worms World Party. I don't like this one as much as Armageddon. I think Worms Armageddon on the Dreamcast is the best Worms game, in my opinion, ever made. This one is fun. It does add some new weapons. The Dreamcast version of Armageddon does not have the concrete donkey, but it is apparently in Armageddon. But Worms World Party was my first introduction to the concrete donkey, which is probably the most broken weapon, in my opinion. It's a giant donkey statue compared to the rest of the map, and it goes straight down, and it causes an earthquake every time it hits and an explosion underneath it. So if you land it on someone, that worm is just dead. There's nothing to it, because he's either going to just take so much damage as it goes straight down, or he's just going to get knocked into the water as it goes straight down. So, I mean, need a little bit of tweaking with some of the weapons on that one. But it's a Worms game, so if you get some friends together to play it slightly inebriated, it's the best fun you could ever have. Yeah. And last, but certainly not least, Xenogears. Again, a game with giant robots, but this is a more traditional turn-based RPG, not a tactical RPG. The story for this is ridiculously complex, very convoluted. Why these people have giant robots, and it deals very heavily with psychological issues, but the story is just amazing. It goes on forever, but you never feel like you're just wasting time. It doesn't feel like it's ever dragging on. The combat system is ridiculously insane in terms of turn-based, but you do combos based off of button commands. So as you get higher up in level, you can do different combinations to do special attacks. It's highly worth the price. This is also on the PlayStation Network, so I haven't mentioned that. A lot of these games are on PlayStation Network as PlayStation Classics, so if you don't get the chance to shell out the money for them on the PS1, which PS3s can play PS1 games, so if you do have the PS1 copy, you can play it on your PS3, even if it's not a backwards compatible PS3 for the PS2 games. All PS3s can play PS1 games. Not all PS3s can play PS2 games. So that is the weird confusion for that. But if you do have the hard copy version, or you can track down the hard copy version for cheap, it'll play it on a PS3. If not, if you have a PS3, buy it on the PlayStation Network. because that's the best way to get more of these games on the PlayStation Network, is to buy them. So yeah, that is my PS1 collection. My wish list for that is done. I don't plan on buying any more PS1 titles. Same with my Saturn games. All the games for those are done. For the wish lists that aren't done, I will show off what games, like in a little bubble somewhere, that I want to buy. But yeah, that's all for PS1, and I will see you in other collection videos. Till then, later.